Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be giving you a tier list from some of the spoilers from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Hello again. So I'm Justin.
And I'm Austin G.
And today we're going to be giving you some cards from Midnight Hunt, and we're going to be organizing them on a scale from good to very good, or bad, or dog shit on this tier list we're going to make.
We're pretty excited about this list here, huh, Justin?
I'm pretty excited. We've actually not discussed the spoilers between ourselves yet, so this is going to be our first take. Right. Just taking a look at them and what we think about them. Why don't we start with the one card that I think most people are probably the most excited for, and I think that is Tovolar, Dire Overlord, for a generic, a red, and a green. He is a legendary creature, human werewolf. Wow. Oh my god, right? Mm-hmm. Whenever a wolf or werewolf you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more wolves and or werewolves, it becomes night. Then transform any number of human werewolves you control, and it has daybound. So he flips into Tovolar, the Midnight Scourge, who is a legendary werewolf. Whenever a wolf or werewolf you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And then he has X, red, green to target wolf or werewolf you control gets plus X plus O and gains trample until end of turn. And he has Nightbound, and he is a 4/4. So some Commander players for as long as like 10 years ago, I mean, like I can remember when I first started playing Commander, like people were saying, you know, this was like 6 years ago, like, oh my gosh, like I wish there's so many cool werewolves, but there's no werewolf Commander. Right. But now, like after years and years, you know, Wizards of the Coast has finally fucking done it. They've actually printed a good, viable werewolf commander that offers excellent werewolf support.
Right. And not only that, he is a card draw engine in the command zone for a low cost.
Yeah.
1 generic, 1 red, 1 green. You can't ask for better.
Yeah, I love that about him. You were saying earlier that it's almost like another Tymna in the command zone?
It does remind me a lot of Tymna. And in a lot of ways, I think it might be better.
Really? You think it might be better than Tymna?
The only drawback is that it doesn't have the ability to partner.
Yeah. So it doesn't have partner, and it's limited to red-green, and it's wolves and werewolves specifically. But I still do like it a lot. I'm probably still going to make the werewolf deck just because I'm excited about the Tovolar.
Well, absolutely. It's kind of an all-in-one. You know, you got that card draw, you got the tribal, and you get the Voltron aspect.
The Voltron aspect, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. When he flips.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, so he's got the, I think Kessig Wolfrun is the name of the card. He's got Kessig Wolfrun kind of stapled onto his flip side there. What do you give this guy? Like, what do you think? Like, on a scale from, like, S tier, A tier, like, where do you think he places on our tier list?
I think fairly. I believe he is about tier B.
B?
Yeah.
I think he is actually tier A, just because he's not tier S. Like, he's not CDH playable.
Correct.
But I think that, you know, this guy is like the perfect commander for wolves and werewolves. And you can use him as like a draw engine for all of those creatures.
On the flip side, if he did have the ability to be a partner commander, he would be tier S.
Oh, if he was a partner commander, yes. Yeah, he would be kind of bonkers. We're gonna give him a B plus, like the high side of B.
That sounds good to me, Justin.
Yeah. Okay. So the next card we're gonna be taking a look at is Teferi, who slows the sunset.
One of my favorite titles for a Teferi card.
Yeah.
Or Planeswalker in general.
I love Teferi. You know me, like Teferi, like Chainveil Teferi was like my first CDH deck.
Correct.
Teferi has a very special place in my heart. So Teferi, who slows the sunset, for 2, a white and a blue, is a legendary Planeswalker, obviously. He has a starting loyalty of 4, and he has +1 choose up to 1 target artifact, up to 1 target creature, and up to 1 target land. Untap the chosen permanents you control, and then tap the chosen permanents you don't control. You gain 2 life. His -2 is look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand, and the rest onto the bottom of your library in any order. And then his -7 is really fucking cool, I think. It's you get an emblem with untap all permanents you control during each opponent's untap step, and you draw a card during each opponent's draw step. So, my initial thoughts on this card is that it's just okay. I don't really see this seeing like any CEDH play. I don't even think it really replaces any of the planeswalkers and like blue-white decks that already play planeswalkers. I might see the best place I see this having a home in is like a Super Friends deck. Mm-hmm. Like if you're in Atraxa Super Friends or something like that, you want that emblem, really. That's a really good emblem. But other than that, I'm not seeing a bunch of upside where I'm just like, oh my gosh, this card is bonkers. So, you know, I played Chainveil Teferi like a lot. Like it was my first CH deck. So I saw someone on a Reddit forum kind of comparing this to that card and asking if this was like the new Chainveil Teferi, because you can untap permanents with his +1, similar to the other one. It just doesn't work. It's not the same, because if you were to use the Chainveil and try to go infinite with this Teferi, the difference with Teferi Who Slows the Sunset and Teferi Temporal Archmage is that Archmage untaps any 4 permanents, and it doesn't care what kind they are. This Teferi he untaps specifically a creature, an artifact, and a land. So if you want to try to Chainveil combo with this, the artifact that you would need to be untapping is the Chainveil, and that means that your land and your creature together would have to be untapping for 5 mana total, which is pretty difficult because basically you can't really combo off with like an Ancient Tomb. So you would need something, you would have to splash green, I think, or black. Like you would have to be untapping your Gaia's Cradle or whatever, or you'd have to be untapping like a Bloom Tender that taps for 4 or something like that. So as for me, I think the card is just okay. I'm going to put it in C. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
I think I agree with you on that. Mm-hmm. C sounds good to me.
Okay, so I understand there's actually a lot of excitement for this next card we're going to be talking about. I don't know about you. I'm pretty hyped. I'm definitely going to be putting this in some of my decks. The card is Siphon Insight. Yep. It is an instant for a blue and a black, and it reads, look at the top 2 cards of target opponent's library, exile one of them face down, and put the other on the bottom of that player's library. You may look at and play the exiled card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. And if the spell wasn't good enough already, it also has flashback for a generic, a blue, and a black. This card is insane, right? Like
absolutely. Storm decks are going to really like this card. Mm-hmm. One thing you can do with it is target people's top deck tutors. Vampiric tutor, instant speed, get access to whatever they tutored.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is an added bonus. Like I think the card is already amazing just because I really like cards like this where it's like cards that simultaneously with one card put you ahead and set your opponent's back.
Yeah.
So that's why I really like theft decks and things like Narset's Reversal, or even like there's this card called Shadow of Doubt, which is just like a cute little cantrip that says your players can't search libraries this turn, and then you draw a card.
Yeah.
So I think Siphon Insight is awesome on its own. Like even if you're just like on someone's end step, like I'm gonna steal like the best card of the 2 that's on top of your deck. But the fact that you can also use it as like a weirdo counterspell and like, you know, steal what they vampiric tutored or whatever.
Not only that, counter bait.
Oh, yeah.
And if it doesn't go off the first time, you can always flash it back. Oh, my
God. I didn't even think about this. This card is fucking insane.
It is.
Because, like, you can, like, just off the bat, like, with nothing else, like, you're stealing your opponent's cards. And you can cast them or leave them in exile.
Right.
Or you can use it as counter bait. And if it gets countered, you just cast it again because it has flashback.
Correct.
Or you can use it to, like, soft counter, like, a Vampiric Tutor or something. This card is probably one of the best cards that came out in the set, I think. Like, it's out of all the cards I've seen, I think this is, like, one of the best.
It's definitely one of the best. I think it's going to be a CDH staple for the time being.
CDH staple. So this is at least an A. Is it S?
I'm going to go S on this one.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to give it an A just because, like, it looks insane on its face.
Yeah.
But, you know, like any other card, it probably requires some testing. So we're going to give this shit an A+.
Yeah.
At the very least. It's definitely an A+. Okay, so our next card that we're going to be taking a look at, I've been seeing mentioned a lot in both the CEDH forums and the casual forums. It seems like no matter like where you're playing on the power level spectrum, like you want this card in your deck, right? So this next card is Malevolent Hermit. For a generic and a blue, you get a human wizard with blue, sacrifice Malevolent Hermit, like put in 1 blue mana, sacrifice Malevolent Hermit, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 3, and then it has disturb 2 and a blue. You may cast this card from your graveyard transformed for its disturb cost, so then it comes back as Benevolent Geist. It is a spirit wizard, a 2/2 with flying, and non-creature spells you control can't be countered.
Right.
If Benevolent Geist would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile instead. When I saw this card, like I looked at it and I said, wow, that like this is one of those cards that's going to want to make Austin like want to rebuild a zombie.
Absolutely. Yes. And it replaces in a lot of ways Martyr of Frost, which was kind of a zombie staple.
Yeah.
And you can really play them side by side. But this is one of those cards that you can put into play, draw off it with the zombie's ability.
Yeah.
Sacrifice on somebody else's turn. And when you're about ready to go off, flip it.
Yeah.
And you were unstoppable at that point.
I just love the threat of like holding it up.
Yeah.
Because just even if you like don't use it, just like it existing on the board is like a little bit of control.
It's a threat.
Yeah.
It's always a threat.
So like even outside of like the Azami deck, I think it's good in basically like any like mid-range to control deck where you have some kind of like infinite combo that you're going to need to protect in your end game. In the beginning, you can use it to stop other people from like comboing off or trying to win, or you can just use it as a threat. Like, oh, you better not do that. You know, you can like get inside people's heads with this card because like you can make people think that like, you know, you're going to counter their spell. So like, don't even try it. And like, you know, you can go around the whole table and like all 3 of your opponents will just like not even want to try because like because you're going to convince them that you're going to counter it.
And then once he comes in for his disturb cost, you just are unstoppable.
Yeah, exactly.
Nearly unstoppable unless they have something like Disc or O-Stone on the board.
Yeah, I mean it's even better in some regards than Grand Abolisher.
Yeah,
because Grand Abolisher is just your turn, but like this thing is gonna protect your ad nauseum on someone's end step.
Absolutely.
Or like any other card you want. This card is insane. I think like even outside of CDH, like even like casual people, like if you're watching this video and you're like trying to, you know, decide what are good cards to pick up from the set and like put in your decks to upgrade them, I think it's safe to say like even if you're just like a casual player and you're in blue and you want to protect your non-creature spells, like put this in your deck.
Absolutely.
This is S.
This is
a solid.
An S tier.
This is going on the S tier. So the next card I want to talk about is Jerren Corrupted Bishop, who transforms into Ormendahl the Corruptor. So Jerren Corrupted Bishop for 2 and a black is a legendary human cleric with whenever Jerren Corrupted Bishop enters the battlefield or another non-token human you control dies, you lose a life and you create a 1/1 white human creature token. And then you can pay 2 To target human you control, gains lifelink until end of turn. And then, at the beginning of your end step, if you have exactly 13 life, you may pay 4 and a black and a black. If you do, transform Jerren. And then he transforms into Ormendahl the Corruptor, a legendary demon with flying, trample, lifelink, 6/6 body, and sacrifice another creature, draw a card.
I don't know about you, Justin, but this is a huge disappointment.
This is a huge disappointment. So,
very specific. The biggest disappointment for me as a mono black player,
yeah,
is that Ormendahl the Corruptor is a pretty damn good card.
Yeah.
In high power decks.
Yeah.
But he's so specific to flip.
Yeah.
And Jerren on his own doesn't do a whole lot.
Right. So I think Jerren on his own is like kind of ass. Like he's just kind of really niche and like he doesn't really do a lot of stuff that other cards don't do better already.
He's a 2/3 that creates tokens.
Yeah, like who gives a, like if you want a 2/3 that creates tokens, like go play fucking Selesnya. Like this isn't but yeah, I don't like, I'm disappointed because Innistrad gave us Grizzle, like original Innistrad gave us Grizzlebrand, like arguably, subjectively, like the best demon ever printed. I would even go so far as to say the best creature ever printed by Wizards of the Coast. Like,
likely.
If you have that on the board, like you're an asshole if you don't win that game.
Correct.
And then, so for this set, I was really excited because I was looking out for like the next, big black demon that is going to be like really powerful and like, I'm going to want to play it. Like, we got Villis, that's still Commander Legal, Razaketh, both, expensive like big black demons, but also like incredibly powerful.
And if you look at it, this demon is in a way kind of a cross between those two.
Yeah.
And I think he would potentially be a tier B if
it was
if he wasn't so specific to flip.
I think if Ormendahl like by himself was just like a legendary creature and costed like
5 or 6.
Oh, dude, he'd be way more than that. He'd be like 8 mana. Even if he was like 7 or 8 mana and he was a legendary creature, this would be A tier.
Absolutely.
Maybe even S tier, because you're at that point it is comparable to Razaketh Villis. Like it's like you said, he's almost like the love child of the two, where you're like sacking a creature, draw a card, which is really strong. But the fact that you need to jump through so many dumbass hoops, like getting yourself to 13 life in Commander and then paying, and on top of that you have to pay 6 just to get it, is dog shit. I don't see this getting a lot of play or value in Commander.
I'm going to go ahead, Justin. I'm going to go ahead and put it all at the bottom. Tier D for me.
Yeah, definitely D for dog shit for Ormendahl, and I'm just really disappointed in, because it's also like a kind of like a story and a flavor loss, because like they've been talking about the character Ormendahl since like original Innistrad.
Yeah. And
to have him like, finally seeing play in like this card is a little disappointing.
Yeah.
I mean, he was also in the land. I forget what it's called. We'll put the image on the screen when we have it. But it was a land that you could sack creatures and it flips into Ormendahl. So this is actually the second Ormendahl, but this is by far like the worst Ormendahl. It's D for dog shit. So our next card that we have is Curse of Silence. For 1 mana, for 1 white, it's an enchantment, an aura curse with enchant player. As Curse of Silence enters the battlefield, choose a card name. Spells with a chosen name, enchanted player casts cost 2 more to cast. And whenever enchanted player casts a spell with the chosen name, you may sacrifice Curse of Silence. If you do, draw a card.
This is one of those cards, Justin, that I think if you want to hate on a specific player,
this
is the card to play. Other than that, I would say Aura Silence, the card we've already had, is much better in general because it affects the entirety of the board.
Right.
It is a 1-drop, which is an upside, but I don't really see this card seeing much play.
This card, it's more of like a fuck you card. It's not really, like you said, it's not like super useful. But if you're one of those people where you're just like, you're losing a lot to like one player in particular at your store, or you're losing a lot to one particular commander or something, you can just play Curse of Silence and like name their commander.
Right.
And you're basically saying like, okay, on my turn 1, I'm giving you a commander tax.
I would go as far to say if this were French commander we were talking about, it's a pretty good card.
It's pretty good. Or if it's like 1-on-1,
yeah,
like you can just like turn 1, name their commander, and then, you know, it's harder for them. Like it might take them 1 extra turn or 2 extra turns to play their commander, and when they finally do, sack it and draw a card.
But if you already have access to Dranith, I couldn't see playing this card whatsoever.
Yeah, I think it's cute. It's not like super good, but it's not like super bad either. I'm putting it in B.
I'm gonna give it a C.
You're gonna give it a C?
Yeah.
All right, Curse of Silence is a C+ for us. All right, so this next card makes me feel weird. It's a Gisa Glorious Resurrector for 2 generic, a black and a black. It is a legendary human wizard, a 4/4 body with, if a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. At the beginning of your upkeep, put all creature cards exiled with Gisa Glorious Resurrector onto the battlefield under your control. They gain Decayed. Oh, and if you don't know what Decayed means, it's a new mechanic in Midnight Hunt, which is a creature with Decayed can't block. When it attacks, sacrifice it at the end of combat.
Well, Justin, I like this better than Cletus, the
Who's
Vampire
Cletus?
Commander.
Oh, really?
Where
Okay, we'll put Cletus up on screen.
Sounds good for me. I kind of think this could be a new mono black staple.
It could be. When I first saw the card, my immediate thought was comparing it to Tigrid. Okay. I think it's pretty similar to Tigrid. So Tigrid God of Fright is like basically an It That Betrays.
Right.
It's 5 mana instead of what I think It That Betrays is like 11 or 12.
Right.
And it's legendary, 12. So it can be in your command zone. How fun. So Tigrid, when you sacrifice a permanent or discard a card, you gain control. So like when your opponents sacrifice or discard, you gain control of those permanents and those cards. Gisa is kind of similar, where if you can build this as your commander and just like have a lot of single target removal, or just like a Toxic Deluge for less than 4 or something like that to like kill everything that's not Gisa.
Yeah.
And then you exile all that shit, and then you just get those cards at the beginning of your upkeep, which I think is amazing. And it's pretty similar to Tigrid, because you can essentially just like kill and steal your opponent's best creatures, which is super good.
I would actually say this would be Tigrid's right-hand lady, in the fact that I would play her in the deck in the 99, not necessarily as a commander, because Tigrid has the obvious reasons for being better.
Right.
But I think if you don't have access to Tigrid at the moment, Gisa would be somebody you'd want to swap in.
Absolutely. I think Gisa would be a really good commander on her own, and she could also go into Tigrid. I give her an A. I think she's good. I don't think she's as good as Tigrid, but she's close. And she could be a fun commander or just slot really well into the 99.
I agree. I'm going to go ahead and give her a B, however.
Okay.
I don't think she's quite high power on her own.
Okay, so we're going to put Gisa at the top of B. Okay, the next card we're going to take a look at is Vanquish the Horde. For 6 generic, white and white for 8 mana, it is a sorcery with, this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield and destroy all creatures.
I think any deck that's not an ad nauseum wants this card.
Yeah, I think just like if you're a white deck, like even if you're, you know, anywhere like on the casual spectrum, like you don't even have to necessarily play competitive. This is a solid fucking card. Like it's really just Wrath of God plus Blasphemous Act equals Vanquish the Horde.
And a lot of times you're going to be dropping it for 2 white.
Play this card when you really need it. Most of the time it is going to be 2 white. It's a really efficient, excellent board wipe.
I mean, if you are playing in a meta where people regenerate a lot of creatures, it might not be quite as good as Wrath of God. But I think in almost every other situation, this card is better than Wrath of God. Because
I haven't even seen anyone regenerate a creature in like
been a while.
forever.
It's been a while.
I forgot it exists.
I'm sure some metas have that as a main dish, but not one I've been a part of in a long time.
It's a good card. It's a good card. I give it an A.
I give it an S.
An S?
I do.
Okay. We're giving this card an A+, like top of A.
Yes.
Top of A. Okay, we have yet another really fucking spicy card to come out of Midnight Hunt, and that is Rite of Harmony. For a green and a white, we have an instant with whenever a creature or enchantment enters the battlefield under your control this turn, draw a card. And then it has flashback, 2 green and a white. This year so far has really been the year for like green-white Enchantress decks.
Yes.
We got a lot of Enchantress support in Modern Horizons 2. We got Sithis Harvest's Hand, who is the de facto like best Enchantress commander ever now, I think. And now we have this, which is amazing because, you know, drawing cards, like obviously like the best thing you can do in Commander. And it lets you do it whenever you play an enchantment or a creature. So I think this is an auto include for the rest of time in every Enchantress deck ever.
Enchantress decks, token decks. It's just one hell of a card, Justin.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
As long as you're playing creatures or enchantment heavy, you know, as long as you're creature or enchantment heavy, this card is going to be one that will be a staple for your deck.
I high-fived myself and did like a little like celebration dance when I saw this card get spoiled because I want to put it in my Sithis enchantment deck.
There you go.
So like it's going to trigger whenever you play like your enchantresses or enchantments, and you're just going to draw like all the cards.
A lot of cards.
On your turn.
A lot of cards.
And then it has flashback, which is just nuts.
It's insane.
Like I would windmill slam this into my Enchantress deck even if it didn't have flashback. But the fact that it has flashback and it's only 4 to flashback is it just makes me feel so good and warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah, if you want to draw cards, this is the card to play.
This is the card.
I don't know about you, Justin. I'm gonna go ahead and give this thing an S.
I'm gonna give it an S. This is an S tier card.
Yes.
For the right deck. It is an S tier card. Okay, so we actually had to redo our recording for this next card because we didn't at first realize just how powerful it actually is.
It's ridiculous.
So our next card is Old Stickfingers for X, a black, and a green. He is a legendary creature, a horror, and he has, when you cast this spell, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X creature cards. Put all the creature cards revealed this way into your graveyard and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Old Stickfingers' power and toughness are equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard.
Wow.
Before we get too deep into how bonkers and amazing and game-breaking this card is, let's go over how you would actually like play this in the most optimized way possible. And that is with a Necrotic Ooze Reanimator package.
Right.
So
3 creatures. You only need 3 creatures in your whole deck.
Right. So how this would work to make it like the best possible version of itself is you only run 3 creatures in your entire deck. And what are those 3 cards that combo off here?
It's Necrotic Ooze, Phyrexian Devourer, and Walking Ballista.
Right. So if those 3 cards that we have up on screen now are the only cards in your deck, you can do something like cast Old Stickfingers when you have a Reanimator spell in your hand ready to go. Cast Old Stickfingers for 3. Go through your entire deck until you get those 3 creatures, which are Necrotic Ooze, Phyrexian Devourer, and Walking Ballista. Put those into your graveyard with your Reanimator spell that you have handy. Cast it targeting your Necrotic Ooze.
Correct.
And then you win the game right there on the spot. So basically this deck would just be tutors what draw spells you can have, a lot of ramp, like a lot of fast ramp, and then just those 3 creatures.
Anti-counter spells.
Like you're gonna want to be running like Veil of Summer. We might actually do a deck tech on this later.
Yeah.
But for right now, all you need to know is that this card is insanely powerful. It is right at the top of S tier, and you could potentially make a CEDH competitive deck with this guy.
But also as a casual commander, he's also very good.
Oh yeah, even as like a casual commander, like you can just like, get stuff in there for value. You could do like some kind of, if you want to go really creature heavy, you could even do like a Voltron commander with old Stickfingers.
Right.
But even if you're casual, competitive, or whatever, I think the brunt of his strength, like you're going to derive the most value from this deck, is if you just focus on the Reanimator strategy. Because basically fetching like creatures from your library to pitch directly into the graveyard is really good, and the possibilities are endless here. So
I think I'm going to make my own. Honestly, dude.
Me too. Like this guy is insane. He is a solid S. He's an easy top of S. This card is insane.
Solid top of S.
Yeah, I can't believe they printed this.
I can't either.
Okay, now that we've had sufficient time to calm down from how, we've gotten over the old Stickfingers hype and how...
A little bit.
We're still there.
We're still on it.
We're ready to move on to our next card that we're going to look at. It is Dennick, Pious Apprentice. This is another one of those day-bound, night-bound, flippy boys.
In fact, he's anti-Stickfingers.
Oh, he is, isn't he?
He is anti-Stickfingers.
So we have Dennick, Pious Apprentice for a white and a blue. He is another one of those day-bound, night-bound, flippy boys. He's a legendary human soldier, a 2/3, with lifelink, and cards in graveyards can't be the targets of spells or abilities. And then he has Disturb for a 2 white and a blue. So if he's in your graveyard, you can cast it for its Disturb cost, and it comes back transformed as Dennick, Pious Apparation, which is a legendary spirit soldier for 3/2, and it has flying, and whenever one or more creature cards are put into graveyards from anywhere, investigate. This ability triggers only once per turn. And then if Dennick, Pious Apparation would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead, but that's not super relevant if he's your commander.
I think they should call him Denrick Anti-Stickfingers.
Dennick Anti-Stickfingers, because he's basically just like a Grafdigger's Cage on a stick in your command zone, if you want him to be.
I honestly think Droneth would be a better pick overall, but I think you could play them side by side in the 99. I think that's fair to say. I mean, he kind of replaces Grafdigger's Cage in blue-white in a lot of ways.
I think he's just okay, like as a commander. But I mean, going in the 99, he might have like more value.
Yeah.
Because like even if he dies, he can come back and do something.
Right.
I mean, the clue tokens kind of suck. And if you're at a point where you're willing to pay 2 to draw a card, like you're not doing super well in the game anyway.
I don't think he's the type of card you would play in order to flip.
No.
He's the type of card where the front of the card reads the best ability on the card. I mean,
yeah.
He's a blocker. He has lifelink. He stops graveyard strategies completely.
I think he's just okay. Like, he's not bad, but he's like nothing to write home about either.
Right.
Like, a lot of times he could be like completely useless. Like, if you're playing in a game where like people aren't really using their graveyards that much, he could just do nothing.
But in a game where people are using their graveyards, he can be kind of bonkers.
Yeah, so like play this guy, like make this guy your commander if you're playing against a lot of graveyard decks and you find yourself losing a lot to like Reanimator decks or casts or things like that. But again, he's very niche. I don't think he's like super powerful. I feel comfortable putting this guy in C.
I disagree, actually. I'm going to go move up to an A.
To an A?
To an A.
Okay, so we're going to meet in the middle and just slot him right into B tier.
Sounds good to me.
So for our next card, I think I'd like to talk about how much of a piece of shit this next card is. And that is Enduring Angel. For 2, a white, and a white. You get an angel with flying and double strike. And it says, you have hexproof. If your life total would be reduced to 0 or less, instead transform Enduring Angel, and your life total becomes 3. Then, if Enduring Angel didn't transform this way, you lose the game. It's a 3/3, and it transforms into Angelic Enforcer. It's an angel with flying. You have hexproof. Angelic Enforcer's power and toughness are each equal to your life total. Whenever Angelic Enforcer attacks, double your life total. I think this card is ass, but
it's not so good.
You seem to disagree.
I think in a Kalia build, she would be okay. One of my biggest issues, however, is you have Hexproof. Okay, that's strong enough, especially for a casual meta. However, the creature doesn't have Hexproof.
The creature doesn't have Hexproof.
So in other words, remove this creature and you no longer have Hexproof.
It's not just that. It's also extremely easy to just lose the game with this because of her lose the game little text right there. So, for example, if this thing goes to transform, right? Like if your life total ever becomes like 0 instead of 3, if someone just like paths to exiles this or whatever,
it's over.
With that ability on the stack, you lose the game.
Yeah.
And then you really don't want to be getting that close to death anyway in Commander for it to even be good. So I don't like this. I don't think it's worth it. I mean, even with the flip side, like it's just so fickle and like easy to skirt and just die with anyway.
Even in Kalia, if you want a creature with double strike, there's a lot of options.
I gave it a D for dog shit.
I give it a D.
It's a D. It's a D. This next card that we're going to be taking a look at is Sigarda's Splendor. For 2, a white and a white, it is an enchantment with, as Sigarda's Splendor enters the battlefield, note your life total. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if your life total is greater than or equal to the last noted life total for Sigarda's Splendor. Then note your life total again. Whenever you cast a white spell, you gain a life. Thoughts on this?
I would feel uncomfortable playing this card, not just because it's a weak draw engine, but because of the casting cost alone. I think that it's not enough value. You wouldn't be getting enough value for the cost.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with Wizards of the Coast and just refusing to give white like a playable draw spell.
Yeah.
Like the meme for many years has been that Boros, red-white colors, are really bad at card draw and really bad at ramp. But like only half of that is true. While it doesn't have greens like ramp spells and stuff like that, all colors have access to mana rocks. So like ramp has never really been a problem, but it has always had a problem with drawing cards and card advantage effects. And while this is okay, it's really not that good, especially when you compare it to other format staples like Phyrexian Arena, Rhystic Study, things like that. And it's 4 mana, so I just really don't like it. I don't think it's worth the mana.
The only way I would play this card if it was 1 white.
I would play this card. I would play it for 3 actually, but the 4 is actually like a deal breaker. So
the 4 is definitely a deal breaker.
It's not dog shit, but it's not like very good either. I'm gonna give it a C.
I'm gonna give it a C.
Okay, so we're taking a look at Lier, Disciple of the Drowned. For 3, a blue and a blue. It is a legendary human wizard, 3/4. With spells cannot be countered. Each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback, and the flashback cost is equal to that card's mana cost.
When I first took a look at this card, I was very excited, but I realized very quickly that it doesn't do anything Teferi doesn't already do better.
I don't think it's bad. It's just not... If you're looking for like a CDH commander, like this isn't it. It can do some cute stuff, but like the one thing you got to really be careful of is enabling your opponents, which I think this does better than anything else.
I think it does. I think if the card had flash and you could flash it in at the end of your opponent's turn and then start playing spells on your turn and just maybe outright win the game, that would be the only way I could see playing it. But the fact that it doesn't have flash really sets you back a lot.
Yeah, like if someone's playing Lier and I sit down at a table and play against someone playing this, I am going to be happy to see it, honestly. Yeah. Because I know my spells aren't going to get countered.
Absolutely.
And really, like, I see Lier as more of like a fun, janky kind of commander who, like, there are like fun, cool things you can do with it. Like if you want to just make like a big spell slinger, like if you want to cast Expropriate twice or something.
Absolutely.
Actually, Expropriate, it goes into exile after you play it. But if you want to do, like, take extra turns or steal people's permanents or things like that, this is a good commander for that. And it's actually really good with High Tide, too.
It's very good with High Tide. If you break it down, it's actually would be the best commander of this ability, I mean, if you think about it, it's better than Kess in a lot of ways, at least the second ability. But the first ability just weakens it. The casting cost weakens it greatly. If this were a 3-drop, I could see playing it as a... if this were a 3-drop, I could see playing it as a card in the 99, but I just don't see it for the mana cost.
Yeah, sadly, like, this looks fun on its face, but I think in practice it would prove to just be an enabler for another deck that's trying to win.
Yeah, and if you were going to play this as your commander as a blue player, you wouldn't be playing any counter spells.
No, you wouldn't. I mean, you could play some, like you do like Narset's Reversal or Unsubstantiate, like where it's like returning it to hand, or you could do like Summary Dismissal where you just like exile the stack because it's not technically countering it, but you know, you only have like a handful of niche spells that you can play with this anyway. So it's cute. Again, like I don't think it's anything to write home about. I'm gonna give it a C.
I'm gonna give it a C as well.
All right, the next card that I thought was worth mentioning is Lord of the Forsaken, because I'm all about those giant black demons that come out in these Innistrad sets. Lord of the Forsaken, for a 4, a black and a black, is a demon with a 6/6 body with flying trample, and you can pay a black and sacrifice another creature for target player mills 3 cards, and then you can pay 1 life, add 1 generic, spend this mana only to cast a spell from your graveyard.
It's a very interesting card here. I mean, if you're going to land a Yawgmoth's Will, I could see having him on the field would be an advantage, but getting him on the field would be an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 6-drop. It's not necessarily something that I would find worth reanimating if you have better options, which black has plenty of better options as far as big flying black demon creatures. The trample's nearly irrelevant. Yes, it flies. Okay. The sacrifice a creature ability costs 1 black. I mean, I wish it were free.
Yeah, me too. I'm not seeing this thing like break a lot of decks or like do anything that other cards don't already do. You might want the second ability for your Underworld Breach combo things, like if you need mana to cast stuff from the graveyard. But again, like I'm not seeing this do something that other cards don't do better already. Maybe if Wizards of the Coast prints more cards and like we have more combo potential for this thing, like it would be better. But you know, I'm not seeing like a ton of great use for Lord of the Forsaken that other cards don't already do.
I agree.
Like it's not a bad card and you can do some cute combo wombo stuff with it, but it's not adding anything new to the format, I don't think.
Yeah, we already have Razaketh, which sacks creatures for free.
It's not bad, but it's not entirely great either. I think it's maybe a little bit better than C tier. I'm going to give it a B.
I'm going to give it a C as well.
Okay, so this is a hard C from us. Next, we have Ludevic Necrogenius for a blue and a black. He's a legendary human wizard with whenever Ludevic Necrogenius enters the battlefield or attacks, mill a card. And then if you want to pay X, blue, blue, black, black, you can exile X creature cards from your graveyard to transform Ludevic, and you can only activate that as a sorcery. He transforms into Olag, Ludevic's Hubris. He is a legendary zombie, a 4/4 with... As this permanent transforms into Olag, Ludevic's Hubris, it becomes a copy of one of the exiled cards, except its name is still Olag, Ludevic's Hubris. It has base power and toughness 4/4, and it's a black and blue legendary zombie in addition to its other types. This is why we're talking about this card last. Like, it's just... It's so disappointing, and it's obviously one of those things where you can tell this was a card that Wizards of the Coast made to try to like pander to Commander players, but I don't see what I'm going to do with this card that I can't already do better with like a Mimeoplasm or Lazav from Ravnica. I'm just really unimpressed by this card.
Well, if you look at him, he enters the battlefield, you mill a card.
Yeah.
He attacks. You mill a card.
Wow, we're milling cards here.
We're only milling 1 card at a time here.
Yeah.
If it were multiple cards, say even like Lord of the Forsaken, if it were 3 cards, it would be better. You would want to play a disproportionate amount of creatures for this mill effect to do anything, which most Commander players aren't going to play more than 35 creatures, especially in Dimir. which is more instant and sorcery based. Yes, you can play a lot of creatures, but I just couldn't see this guy being something that I would want to bring even to a casual event.
I can't see this guy like fulfilling even my desires to like make something janky and fun. Like if I want to do what Ludevic Necrogenius is trying to do, I'm just going to make a Memeoplasm deck for the extra color, and I'm just going to have more fun with that.
For 12 mana, Olag is Consecrated Sphinx. When you can just play Consecrated Sphinx.
Yeah, like who is playing blue, blue, black, black plus X just to like copy something from the graveyard?
I'm not going to play that much blue or black for that.
I'm creating an entirely new tier for this card.
Sounds right.
Below D. I'm giving it an F for fucking dog shit. I don't want to look at it ever again.
I have to agree with you on that one.
Okay, Ludevic is an F for fucking dog shit.
Agreed.
Okay, so I'm actually pretty excited to talk about this next commander. He is Karolus, Stalwart Slayer. And for a generic, a red and a white, you get a legendary human knight that is a 2/3 body with flying haste. And it also has, if a spell would deal damage to you or another permanent you control, prevent that damage. If a spell would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage +1 instead. You know what I'm going to say about this.
Go ahead.
Okay. I used to play Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight, a lot, and this card reminds me a lot of Gisela, and I'm really excited to play this as a commander because this gives me and I imagine a lot of other players too who like to do burn stuff, is a hard and strictly better replacement to Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight, where your damage output is not as good, like you're not doing double damage like you are with Gisela, but you are getting a better defensive effect from it, where with Gisela, if you were going to take damage from any source, you only take half as much, rounded down, where this completely negates that damage entirely, but only if it's from a spell, where Gisela was any source of damage. So I'm looking past that, and I think that the 4 mana discount on mana, like I'd rather pay 3 mana for this than 7 mana for Gisela and have it be like a slightly weaker effect, just so I have my commander out sooner. I can start doing cool shit with it.
Well, Gisela has always been better in the 99 for Kaalia decks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wouldn't even mind paying at the low mana cost that this creature is. I wouldn't mind paying the 3 even in a Kaalia deck. But as a Boros commander, I would definitely say for the casting costs, I would play this over Gisela any day of the week.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Plus you get the haste. So.
Yeah. So I really like this commander. He's going to make a really interesting burn deck. And it's pretty simple. Like, this card is really good, obviously, with cards like Anger of the Gods, Earthquake, things like that.
Pyroclasm, anything.
Pyroclasm, even stuff like Price of Progress or Flame Pillar, things like that normally do damage to all players. And he completely reduces the damage that you would take to nothing and only does it to other people and other people's stuff. Where with Gisela, if you did something like Rolling Earthquake, you still have a limit on yourself as to how much damage you can do before you start destroying your own creatures. Karolus doesn't have that restriction, and you can just, Rolling Earthquake for as big as you want without having to worry about doing damage to yourself or your other creatures. So you probably will differ from me in my grade. I think he's cute, he's fun, he's not like broken CDH, but he has a thing that he does, and he does it really well, I think. I give him a B.
Yeah, I think he does what he does, and I think, like you say, he does it well. You're right, he's not broken, but I'm actually going to give him a B as well. I think he's pretty solid.
All right, I'm giving him an A because he's fun. He's a B+. And that concludes our definitive commander tier list for Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Be sure to like and subscribe to Mox Cardboard TV, your hub for all things Commander. Did you agree or disagree with our card placements? Do you have a similar rubric for evaluating cards? Let us know in the comments. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.